On this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, last week's Nintendo Direct featured snipper clips and Doom, pretty much covering the whole spectrum. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, joined as always by my co-host Mark Mitchell. We got a good show for you today. We're going to be breaking down last week's Nintendo Direct, including talking about that Octopath Traveler demo. And then next show, on Thursday, we're going to have our review discussion of Metroid Samus Returns. But first, Mark, how's it going?
It's going pretty good.
Yeah?
I'm maybe jumping the gun a little bit, but I've decided that it's hoodie weather.
Oh, you're correct. It is hoodie weather. And you're a big fan of the hoodie.
I am. I think it's partly because I'm perpetually cold.
No, but you haven't been cold the last couple weeks.
No.
In Los Angeles.
That's very true. But
this is a great segue into the weather report.
Right. It's pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say cold, but it's not. It's not really cold.
I mean, I've been sleeping with a blanket on the bed in addition to, a sheet.
Uh-huh.
I'm saying it's like I need a little bit more.
Yeah. We're layering. It's
Yeah.
LA's version of layering.
That's right. And it's all very comfortable, and I like to be chilly.
Do you prefer like your home to be very cold and then so that way you can like get into bed with lots of blankets, or do you prefer your home to be like what I would consider a normal temperature and then not have to layer on the blankets when you go to bed?
I think I would prefer needing the blankets.
Okay.
I do. I mean, having grown up in Wisconsin and enduring those winters that are -30, there's something very comforting about like pulling a blanket up and several blankets, having an electric blanket turned on, all of these things just to like survive the cold. I like that. It sounds to me like you do not.
Yeah, I don't.
You'd rather just be normal.
I'd rather just be normal.
All right. Our guest weather today is Cincinnati, Ohio. Looks like maybe a little bit on the warm and humid side in Cincinnati. Currently 73, though, at the time that we're recording this. It is 11 o'clock in Cincinnati.
Yeah, so that seems kind of warm for 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Anyways, big ups to our listeners in Cincinnati, and apologies to the people for the last few weeks that we've had done guest weather, and I don't think I've given big ups to them.
You hold on. You think that we've done guest weather for a location and you've not given big ups to them?
Yeah, I think that's possible.
I would think we should stop right now.
Well, I just want to apologize because I'm not actually choosy about who I give big ups to.
Sure. So you're retroactively giving big ups to all those other...
That's right.
Okay. Perfect. So, Mark, what have you been playing this week?
Well, you and I both have been playing... We played quite a bit of Final Fantasy, original game on the NES.
Now, Mark, if you had to quantify how much Final Fantasy we played...
I mean, maybe like 8 hours?
I think that's on the conservative side. I think we played for at least 8 hours.
And it felt like we made no progress.
No progress whatsoever.
Because there's so much grinding in that game. And I haven't really played very much of Final Fantasy on the NES, so this is definitely the most that I've ever played.
And I did play it. I felt like a lot as a kid, but I am certain that we've just now gotten further than I've ever gotten in the game. We are to the Earth Cave, for anyone familiar with the original Final Fantasy. Our characters are level 12? And they are struggling in that Earth Cave.
I mean, we spent hours, at least 2 or 3 hours, just walking around the forest outside of, what was it, like Elftown or whatever?
Yeah, Elfland.
Or Elfland.
Elfville.
And just trying to level up.
Yeah, it was a good old-fashioned grind.
Yeah.
Like, where a lot of the leveling up is straight not fun. but I really enjoyed myself.
Yeah, I did too. It's a fun game. We were both talking about how we like the sprite work, we like the presentation. Yeah, we muted the music after a while, but the music's not bad.
No, but also that was good. That was a good way for us to like just hang out and listen to some music. And I don't know, I feel like sometimes video games are like the hack to hanging out with someone like a normal human being. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, but we are both saying that it'd be great if they remade this game
Mm-hmm.
and basically just left it as it is, just removed like the small annoying things that come from it being the first Final Fantasy game made in the 80s.
Right. Annoying thing. When you target an enemy that dies, they don't move on to the next enemy. They swing at the air. That's an annoying thing.
When you do an like area
Mm-hmm.
of effect, is that what that's called? That sounds wrong.
Yeah,
What
I
is
don't
that
think it's
called?
right. Like an
AOE? Yeah.
area of effect?
Yeah. Isn't that what AOE stands for?
It might, yeah.
When you do that, when
Right.
you cast like magic that attacks many enemies at once, they go through each enemy individually instead of just having everybody take damage at once.
Right. That should all happen at the same time. When you buy weapons, you should be able to equip them in that moment that you're doing it.
Your characters miss way too often.
I feel like I'm still even okay with that. Like they do miss a lot, and that is frustrating, but that seems like a part of the way the game works. But like everything else about it could be maintained. and
Yeah,
I would be happy with it.
I enjoyed it, and we will definitely have to do that again.
Oh yeah.
So we can get another like what feels like, I don't know, a 10th of the way through the game.
Maybe if we're lucky. I do think. Oh, there was something else I was going to say about this game, and now I'm forgetting. No.
Well, why don't I talk about? I
Please.
was also playing Project Octopath Traveler, the demo
Mm-hmm.
that came out, and then if you think of what you were going to say about Final Fantasy, you can cut me off at any time.
No, we're already letting it go. We're never going to know what I was going to say about Final Fantasy.
So we'll get into this in news, but as part of the last week's Nintendo Direct, they talked a little bit about Project Octopath Traveler and then announced that a demo was dropping right after the Direct was over with. So we both downloaded this demo, and so there are going to be 8 characters in the game that we know of, hence the name Octopath. And you get to play as
the working title.
the working title. At this point, it just has to turn into the real name, right?
I would not put it past Square to name it something dumber than Project Octopath Traveler.
I guess I just feel like they're putting out a demo with this working title that at this point everybody's just used to calling it this dumb name.
I agree that we're used to it. I don't know that means they'll stick to it.
So you get to play in the demo. You play as 2 different characters. You have the opportunity to play as 2 different characters, and you see like the beginnings of their story, or what I presume are the beginnings of their story. Primrose is like a dancer, and then Ulbrich is like a knight, and they each have like individual stories that you can play through. But also, I don't know if you got to this part, but if you complete the story for one of them, so I played through Primrose the dancer first.
Yeah.
And, her story took me maybe like 45 minutes to get through. After that part is over, you don't just get kicked back out to the menu and you can pick Ulbrich. You can actually travel on the world map to where Ulbrich is and get him into your party, and then you go do like a 3rd dungeon.
Sure.
That I have not beat yet because I haven't leveled up enough to do it, and it was totally kicking my trash.
That's pretty cool. So I mentioned over the weekend that this game reminds me a little bit of the old Square RPG Saga Frontier, which had a similar hook of there are like 6, 7, or 8 characters or whatever in the game, and you pick one of them, and then you sort of like live their life in that world, and some of their stories intersect, and like there are different paths that you can go down for each of them. And it seems like this game has some of that DNA in it. That's I don't know. It's neat. I feel like there haven't been kind of more traditional RPGs, or like turn-based RPGs that take on those sort of role-playing aspects of actually playing a character, where this does.
It also has a pretty interesting combat system. And I usually don't pay that much attention to combat systems. Like I don't care that much about them. But this one, so each character has like a unique ability. Primrose can allure people, and so you can get like townspeople to join you in your party, and then in battle you can use them as backup. And Ulbrich has like a challenge mechanic where he can challenge people to duels, which in the demo is basically just used as like a story element. And then there's one point where like you need to get a guy out from, and he's like blocking your path, and you can either challenge him or you can use allure
to just walk him away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then like the actual combat itself has this like break system where enemies are weak to certain kinds of attacks, like either weapons or magic. And then it takes like 2 of those attacks to bring down their shields. And once you've done that, you're able to deal like massive damage.
And also it goes maybe without saying, but let's say it anyway, that the game is gorgeous.
Were you playing on the handheld or the TV?
I was playing on the TV.
I was as well. I feel like it will... I don't know. I thought it looked good. I wish it was more colorful or there was like more contrast. But I do think like in like handheld mode, it would look even more beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, it's just such like a cool and unique aesthetic. And there are frequently times when there's like a really blocky texture like right up in your face. But it looks like they're taking a 16 or 13-bit game and just like propping it up and being like, here, it exists in the real world.
Yeah, and the music's really nice. And it has voice acting for the cutscenes and then little voice acting snippets. I ended up turning it off. Just because I kind of found it annoying after a while. But I was impressed that the cutscenes were fully voice acted.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't expecting that at all. I expected it to be more like, just text boxes.
Yeah. Well, and I really enjoyed the voice acting in those like fully voiced sequences. Like I thought they were good performances. There's like that little incongruousness between like a character's dialogue box says one piece of dialogue and then the actor speaks another one that's like similar in tone, but they're not saying the same thing.
Is that in the cutscenes or like when you're interacting with people in the world?
Interacting with people in the world.
Yeah.
That I found to be very strange. And like Fire Emblem will do that too, where like, the actual dialogue will be like, I didn't mean to offend, and then the spoken word is like, sorry, milady. And it's like, well, wait a minute. which of these is the character saying? And then, of course, we have both also been playing Metroid Samus Returns, and we will talk more about that on Thursday's episode. Mark, let's get into the new releases.
So September 20th, which is Wednesday, there's 2 Switch eShop releases, Morphight, and then, I don't know how to really say this, Soldum?
Sure.
Drop, Connect, Erase. Soldum? I don't know.
No.
And then on Thursday, 2 indie releases on the Switch eShop. Both I'm kind of excited for. There's SteamWorld Dig 2 and Thimbleweed Park are both coming out on Thursday.
Both games look great, and both games will set you back $20. Do you think you're going to grab them both?
Yeah, I think so. We were looking up the price before we started recording, and yeah, I don't really know that right now I want to, if they were like $40 each, that was something I'd be interested in. But like for $40 for both, and since they're both games that I'm interested in, it feels worth like supporting those and just picking them up.
Remind me why we're excited about Thimbleweed Park.
I'm excited about Thimbleweed Park because it's created by some of the creators of my favorite point-and-click adventure games from LucasArts. And it is a point-and-click adventure game, kind of like a throwback to like Maniac Mansion and things like that. So I'm excited to give it a try.
Yeah.
And then on Friday, Pokemon Gold and Silver are launching on the 3DS eShop Virtual Console. And it's a Pokemon type of day because Pokken Tournament DX is launching on Switch.
Yeah, I gotta make a decision here.
Yeah, what are you thinking right now? No, we're not holding you to this, but just, what's your current temperature?
I think I want to play it, I don't know that I want to pay a full price. I don't know that I want to pay for it. Is I guess, but maybe I will. I enjoyed the demo a little bit. I felt limited by the extremely truncated roster. And I know there are so many more characters to play as in the full game. So I think I might.
This is one we didn't look up beforehand, but is it full price? Is it $60 for?
Yeah.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what kind of community it gets on Switch.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it sold very well on Wii U, but it did seem to have a dedicated fan base.
Yeah, and I mean, even if it sold pretty well on Wii U, those are still like even a game like Mario Kart 8, which by Wii U metrics sold very well, was still treated like a game that not many people got to play when it came to Switch. So, yeah, I expect this thing to find some kind of audience at least on the Switch.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to talk about with SteamWorld Dig 2 coming out and Thimbleweed Park and just we've talked about in the past how I have not bought a lot of indie games previously,
Yeah.
but I'm picking a lot up on the Switch. And you hear from developers fairly often, like in the past week, the developers of Forma 8, which we had talked about on the show, Oceanhorn and Death Squared have all come out and said how they're seeing the most success on Switch as a platform.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just curious as to your thoughts as to like why that is.
Yeah, I mean Oceanhorn in particular, they said that they sold more copies on Switch than all other platforms combined.
And it's been out and featured in like the App Store for a few years now.
Yeah. So, what do we attribute that to? I think there are a couple things, right? One is that there's just a lot of excitement around the Switch, so like you're thinking about it as like the new place that you're playing games, right? And there are only so many like big, AAA titles on the thing, and so you have to kind of reach out into these other areas. So I think that's part of it. But I think an even bigger part is that it just feels good to play the Switch. Like, it's as a handheld, it's like a little on the big side, but like I don't know. I've never had a handheld that feels as like consumer electronicsy as Switch. Like the 3DS. God love it. Feels like a toy. And even like my Vita doesn't really feel like a sleek, cool electronic, right? Like I don't know. I just think the Switch. I think there is like a Switch factor that's just fun and feels good to play with.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that you're right. There aren't really. It doesn't feel like there have been like AAA game after AAA game on the Switch. But for me personally, I am feeling like I have too much to play.
Yes.
And I think you're right. I think indies are like succeeding on the Switch for that reason. Because I've never really had this problem. And again, maybe it's because I wasn't diving into what was available in indie games, but on previous consoles, I was fine buying a game, playing it, and then waiting a few months for the next thing to come out. And, this week alone, I'm planning to pick up SteamWorld Dig 2, Thimbleweed Park, and there are games that I haven't had a chance to finish. Like I'm developing a backlog, which I have never really done before.
Yeah. And, like on top of backlog, there's Splatoon to always go back to. For me, there's ARMS to go back to.
And Mario Kart.
Like all of these games have these kind of like replayability or like revisit ability that yeah, I mean it feels like I want to keep going back to that system, and like I check in on it pretty regularly. I guess it's been a little different with since Samus Returns came out, but I usually check in on the Switch most days. And I can't say that that's true of, a PlayStation 4 that I had to like fire up and hear the jet plane inside it take off, and monopolize the TV or whatever.
It also, from my perspective, and maybe this is not true for other people who have bought a Switch and aren't finding much to play on it or are more up on indie games, and so they've played a lot of the ones that are being released and don't feel the need to double dip. To me, it feels like the Switch feels like a thriving platform. Like it feels exciting there are constantly new announcements for it. it feels good to be a gamer on Switch.
Yeah, absolutely. And, feels good to like be a Nintendo fan right now, which is extending beyond a single platform, which it hasn't for, like I feel like the last 2 generations it's been like good to be a Nintendo handheld gamer and like okay to be a Nintendo console gamer. And this is the first time I feel like in a long time that you're like, yeah, there's a bunch of new Nintendo systems hooked in my apartment, and I want to play with all of them all the time. Mark, let's move out of the new releases. Now it's time for a regular segment on our show. It's time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So for the duration of one performance of 433, Mark and I will talk about something not at all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. Mark, I'd like to talk to you about donuts.
Yeah.
But not just any donuts. I want to talk about the donuts that we had on Saturday.
That's right. On Saturday when we were playing Final Fantasy, before we did so, we walked to Dunkin' Donuts.
Because there's a Dunkin' Donuts near my house.
Uh-huh.
There are precious few Dunkin' Donuts in the city of Los Angeles, but I am very near to one. So we walked over there, got half a dozen.
Yep.
Half a dozen dough.
Let's break it down. We got maple bar.
Mm-hmm. We got a pumpkin, just pumpkin, or do they call it a pumpkin spice?
I want to say just pumpkin.
You want to say just pumpkin? Okay, just pumpkin.
A blueberry glazed.
Mm-hmm. And then there was a chocolate cream filled.
And a lemon filled.
And then just like a regular chocolate frosting. Those were the 6.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay. So, standouts in that crowd.
Maple bar, hands down.
Maple bar.
That's my go-to donut in general.
Why is that your go-to donut in general?
It's the maple. Love that maple.
Love that maple.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot. I'm normally like a chocolate guy, right? I'm like, if I'm going to have something sweet, I want it to be chocolatey. I want it to be fudgy. I want to love it.
Yeah, you're more Kathy. I'm more Garfield?
No. I'm more Kathy. You're more anti-Kathy.
Kathy's arch nemesis, of course.
That's right. Nega Kathy. Yeah, I would say that was a standout for me as well.
Followed up by the pumpkin.
Yes. The pumpkin was very
pumpkin
good.
Glazed.
We don't know the name of this.
I'm pretty sure it's just pumpkin. I feel fairly confident.
You just said pumpkin glazed.
Yeah, but I mean, like, because it's pumpkin and then there's a glaze on it. If you went to a Dunkin' Donuts, there would be no mistaking which one we were talking about.
Right. They'll give you the pumpkin one.
Yes.
Both of these donuts, the maple and the pumpkin, were not too sweet, which it turns out is a quality I look for in a donut. I didn't know.
So we are tooting the maple and pumpkin, but we are booting I would say the ones with fillings.
The ones with fillings for sure. That blueberry one was also bad.
It was bad, but I would say it was like edible. Whereas did we eat any of like the filling one, the lemon? There was too much lemon.
Oh yeah,
in the lemon filling, like a disgusting amount of filling.
We both took a bite of the lemon one, and then I said, "I'm gonna throw away the rest of." Oh, by the way, we cut all these donuts in half.
Because we're polite.
We're polite.
You could invite us to your mom's house; it'd be fine.
Yeah, she would love us. You don't need to tell her that you know us from this Nintendo show. Yeah, the lemon one we ended up throwing out, and I ate my halves of the chocolate donuts, but sort of reluctantly. Like, they weren't special. They were a little bit of a chore to get through.
In hindsight, we did it wrong. We should have reversed the order, so we ended on a high note. Right, but we started with the best, and then it was like a slow decline from there.
See, but I don't know, because you didn't eat your halves of the chocolate donuts.
No, I don't really like chocolate that much.
But then it means that since we ended with those, you were just like, all right, I'm done with donuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way to go. You eat your favorite ones first, and then when you get to the ones that are going to be a problem, then you're like, oh, I can just stop doing this.
Okay, well, I mean, not to trample all over another potential 433.
Okay.
But how do you eat your food? Do you eat military style where you eat one like item on your plate at a time, or are you just like throwing it all together?
One of my favorite parts of any cooking show is at the end after they've assembled the dish when the cook or chef shows you how to get all pieces of the meal on one forkful and eat that. So I like to do that. I like to mix them together.
Okay.
I like to have the meal as a bite. Now, mind you, sometimes I'll just be like, "Oh, I'm really feeling these French fries now. I'm gonna eat these French fries." Or like, "Oh, if I put this sandwich down, it's gonna fall apart. I'll finish the sandwich." Right. Um. So there are exceptions. I'm saying. How do you approach?
I think I approach meals as like one piece at a time.
Sure. Now
and
it's
then
time for this. Now it's
yeah,
time for
yeah,
this.
and kind of like based on my own quick like ranking of like what I'm most interested in.
And then you go for most interested first or
No, I
last?
feel like I go for most interested last. It's like get the chore out of the way.
So you've got like something to look forward to.
Yeah, I think so. But we'll never know for sure.
Well, we will. In fact, I mean, I was looking for confirmation on what you just said before.
Yeah, maybe I'm a liar.
Yeah, you might, in fact, be a liar. We were accompanied today by pianist Elaf Onal. Mark, let's get into the news.
The big news, of course, is that there was a Nintendo Direct last Wednesday, and I would say it was kind of like a blowout.
Kind of a blowout. I have to say that the experience of actually watching it was like a weird roller coaster of like, I'm excited about this and I have zero interest in this.
Lots of peaks and valleys, and even things that I was interested in sometimes were paced wrong for me, like kind of like dragged out. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Patrick's been replaced by the sound effects from Home Improvement.
I was trying to do Banjo Kazooie. Well, you're right. It's really more Tim Allen.
So, just like we were talking about eating our vegetables first, let's talk about the 3DS announcements, which were fun, but not really the most exciting part of the Direct.
Right. So there were a handful of like kind of big-ish 3DS games that were either announced or discussed. Revealed for the very first time is Mario Party Top 100, which will be coming out in November 10th. And that is a collection of the 100 best voted best by someone.
The developers, presumably?
I guess so. Mini games from across the Mario Party series. Interesting to note, I thought there's been some like scuttlebutt online about why isn't this on Switch? And my kind of like go-to rationale in my head was like, oh, well, there are Mario Party games on the DS and the 3DS. If they wanted to port those games over to this collection, they would need to have dual screen and one touch screen just to replicate all the same conditions. But when they showed Mario Party Top 100, it like 10 Mario Party games flash up on the screen, and they're all the home console versions.
Oh.
So that's not why it's on the 3DS, because they're only taking games from those 10 console games.
Mario Party is a series that feels like it's kind of on its last legs, or is at least waiting for that next like reinvention or reason to be excited for it.
I mean, but what do you even mean by waiting? Like, what? I guess that like the fan community is waiting for it, but I feel like they just pump these things out. There've been 2 of them on the 3DS.
Yeah,
there was one on the Wii U.
But I think they are significantly less successful than they used to be. Like,
yes.
Each release is definitely like doing less and less business than the one that came before.
Right.
And I mean, for me, the answer as to why this is on the 3DS is because I feel like this is a good example of the type of support we tend to be seeing from Nintendo on the 3DS recently.
Mm-hmm.
It's very clearly not a dead platform, which I expected by this point it would pretty much be. They are releasing so many new versions of the hardware, and all of them are pretty great.
Yeah, they're all cool.
But this is the type of game where it's like not taking too much development resources. So why is it not on the Switch? In my mind, it's because Nintendo wants to continue to support the 3DS. but they want to do it in like Mario Party or Hey Pikmin and that
Yeah,
type of stuff.
I mean, I think it could be that, Nintendo's trying to put their best foot forward on the Switch, and they've got all these other feet, and they're putting all the other feet on the 3DS, which is still something that needs to be supported, but maybe not with their like coolest stuff. I mean, just glancing down the list of like other games here, there's Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which will be big sellers because they're Pokemon games, but like they seem like kind of minor reworkings of the original Sun and Moon.
Yeah, it's just weird. Like maybe there's more to them, but they're keeping all of that stuff hidden at this point. And I
Yeah.
know we're still a few months away, but it feels like a weird way to get people excited for potentially just rehashes of the game that came out last year.
Right. And I think let's get into that in a little bit more depth actually right now. I made some notes about like what the new features of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon as they listed them in the direct. So they said there are 2 new versions of Necrozma, which is one of the Ultra Beasts. New areas in Alola, new outfits, a new way of meeting your starter Pokemon. You can access a Rockruff that can evolve into a Dusk form, Lycanroc. All of this sounds like incredibly like nitpicky stuff, right? Where it's like, if it's a different game with like a different story or like a different trajectory through the game, like tell me that. But they're like, you meet your starters in a different way.
Yeah, it just feels like there has to be more of a reason for these games to exist. And I could totally be wrong. Maybe there isn't. But it also wouldn't completely surprise me if sometime like at the end of next month, we get a Pokemon focused direct that kind of blows out these games more. But yeah, at this point, there's just not much, to my mind, to be excited for in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's probably more excitement around Silver and Gold coming out at the end of this week.
But also speaking to that idea of, like Nintendo putting all their other feet on the 3DS, you have Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga and Bowser's Minions,
right?
Which again looks like a well-crafted game and is adding lots of new content for people to enjoy, but is also a remake of an old game. Like less exciting, less like not really like a blockbuster.
Right. And like not only is it's a remake of an old game with like another new game kind of stapled onto it, in a very like Star Fox Zero, Star Fox Guard kind of way. But like, yeah, I just to your point that like they developed something here. They developed like a game system, and like it's kind of cool, and there's like a little bit of meat on those bones, but maybe not something for a big spectacular Switch release.
But you still have third parties supporting it pretty well. Like there's a bunch of Atlas RPGs that are coming out. You have like Apollo Justice, Ace Attorney coming to the West. From Nintendo, of course, you have Fire Emblem Warriors. But I feel like the big news here was Minecraft is available right now on the 3DS.
Yeah, by the time the direct was over, Minecraft was available on 3DS. Which is that the last holdout? Can you now play Minecraft on everything?
I think so.
Or like everything
that's relevant.
Generations. Yeah. It's not like the original Doom, which you could, people got it to run on like microwaves and stuff. But yeah, it's it's that like completionist. It's a dumbed down version of Minecraft. Does it have any of the Mario, the Mushroom Kingdom stuff in it?
I don't believe so, but I don't know that that's true.
There's also they showed a little bit of footage from the Layton game that is coming over to the system too. Again, like touting some very specific 3DS exclusive portions of it. Like she has a new outfit. You like the Layton games, right?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played one for many. The last one I played was on the original DS. That feels like a series that hasn't like evolved very much, for better or for worse. And of course, there's a new Kirby game coming to the 3DS early next year.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. Is that the first 3DS game that we've seen announced for 2018?
I think so. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
It's January 19th, which is still very early in the year, but and I guess some of these Atlas games will be coming in early 2018 as well. But yeah, Kirby Battle Royale. It's got a single player mode and some online. It's a Kirby game, right? I don't. I know you like Kirby games, but like I always feel like they're mostly disposable. Like it's an experience that you have and then kind of forget about.
I think that's absolutely true.
Mhm.
I'm more excited about a Kirby game coming to Switch because for me, my best memories of playing Kirby are like multiplayer
Mhm.
and like couch co-op. So I think a Switch version that had that is more exciting to me than a 3DS version that has online multiplayer.
Right. Let's use that opportunity to just get on over to the Switch then.
Yeah, so kind of some crazy stuff going on with the Switch, or some unexpected things, if
Yeah.
nothing else.
So where do you want to start here? Do you want to start with the most unexpected, or do you want to like travel through the sort of things that we saw coming?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So there were 3 games that were featured as like large centerpieces here. There was Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Project Octopath Traveler, and Super Mario Odyssey. We talked about uh, Project Octopath Traveler. Um, they can at least drop the project part, right?
Right.
Okay. And yeah, that demo is available now. If you have a Switch, go play it. It's totally worth your time, and it's free. Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
So this was one of those portions where we were talking about peaks and valleys,
Yeah.
where I'm very interested in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I can't believe it's coming out December 1st. You know, when it was first revealed and it was supposed to come out in 2017, nobody believed it.
Right.
When they reiterated it in E3, nobody believed it. Now that they've announced it is coming out December 1st and shown us the packaging and all the special editions, some people still don't believe it.
And a Switch Pro controller as well,
Yeah.
branded with it with all of its stuff.
But the trailer itself was kind of weird to me. One, I think the voice acting is it's a lot.
Yeah.
And the character designs are a lot. But the world looks cool, the combat looks cool, and the trailer was kind of bizarre. It was like narrated by that old man dragon thing.
Yeah, was he one of the Titans?
Yeah, he's like
Okay.
I think he seemed to be like a Titan, or like a smaller Titan who's kind of the main character's landlord, or like the main character lives on him.
Right, but doesn't he also say that like I'm also his god?
Yeah.
Or something. It seems, and like the actor doing this character's voice is it sets an unfortunate tone of like being like a kindly old man caricature who just wants to tell you his stories.
Yeah.
So it came off kind of stupid, right?
Well, and endless.
Yes. Oh my god. It was like 10 minutes of like kind of bumbling Xenoblade stuff. I rewatched the whole direct today just to like make sure that we got everything. And when the Xenoblade Chronicles thing came up, I was like, I'm gonna go do something else.
Which is weird. It's a game I'm interested in and excited for.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, I don't feel like that was the best showing. Or maybe it was, and I should not be as excited for this game as
I mean,
I
think this more than a lot of the other Switch games that I'm excited about, that I'm just like throwing my enthusiasm behind. Like I am going to wait and see how people respond to the actual game itself. Most like early impressions that I've seen are people saying good things about it, and that it is both complicated and accessible in compelling ways. I'm just hoping that the presentation, which like the game looks great and the music sounds great, but like, man, that like acting and just sort of like nonsense writing.
Yeah, in an RPG, especially, one where you could end up spending 50, 60, 100 hours in the world, like having a good combat system that's rewarding is obviously important, but so is having characters that you like and want to spend time with.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's also just possible that like seeing just like little snippets of it here and there and like just checking in on like scenes, it doesn't do it enough justice, and it doesn't give the game the opportunity to cast its spell on you. so that you can be tricked by everything.
And also maybe there's an option to turn off voice acting.
Yeah, or turn on Japanese voice acting or something. All right, and then we saw Super Mario Odyssey, which seems like a slam dunk. They showed us a lot of new areas and new abilities and stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel like I personally don't need to see anything more about this game.
No,
Like, I'm sold. Yeah, you don't need to try to get me to buy this game.
right. It's already happening. I saw that some people were noticing that there's been a graphical upgrade from the version that we saw at E3. You can see side by side shots of Princess Peach, and the carpeting in the background is more detailed, and the lighting on her face is better.
And her character model itself seemed to have gone through some upgrade.
Yeah, so it's I mean, I guess it shouldn't be a surprise that they were still working on this thing, or the build that was at E3 was not as complete as the build they have right now. But still, it's just kind of cool to be like, oh yeah, they're still working on this thing and still making it better.
And we did get a little preview of that Kirby game that I'm excited for, the Kirby Star Allies, that's coming out in spring 2018.
Yeah, not a whole lot of information on that, right? Just kind of it looks like you could take over enemies and get them to join you, but also team up with real players.
Yeah, and it seems like it'll almost be like new Super Mario Brothers style, where you can have 4 people platforming along.
I love 4 people platforming together. It's so chaotic.
So maybe let's get into some of the stuff that we weren't expecting.
Okay.
But was kind of cool. Like, how about snipper clips?
Yeah.
Cut it out together.
Yeah, baby. We both really liked snipper clips when it originally came out on the first day with the Switch. But after having it for a couple days and playing through it, it's kind of like, well, okay, the game's done now. But they're releasing new levels, new worlds, and some additional ways to play through the existing levels by starting you off as different shapes. I'm really excited to revisit this game.
Yeah, so it looks like it's almost like a Animal Crossing New Leaf Welcome Amiibo type situation, where
what a good analogy.
Where the game is being re-released with all this added content as snipper clips, cut it out together, and that's happening on November 10th. But if you already own the game, you'll be able to, it seems like, purchase the additional content.
It's like
as
$10,
DLC.
I think.
But yeah, snipper clips is so much fun. I will definitely be picking this up. I'm glad to see them kind of reintroducing snipper clips now that the Switch has been out for a while and more people have their hands on it. Because I think snipper clips is a great introduction to how fun the Switch can be.
Yeah.
And I am glad that, it's getting more of a spotlight.
And especially that it's getting a spotlight during a time we're out of Zelda's shadow now. We can, if snipper clips were to come out today and Shovel Knight, Spectre of Torment were to come out today, they would both be bigger deals than had they come out than when they came out on March 3rd.
Right, because at that point they were kind of like the other launch titles that were there, but people felt were more like padding than actually
right.
Yeah.
And they're both great experiences, so excited to see at least snipper clips back in the spotlight.
Nintendo also announced these arcade archives.
Yeah, all right. Let's talk about it. Arcade archives.
They're like, I don't even know how to describe it. They're not remasters. They're ports of enhanced ports, I guess maybe, of these arcade games, but designed for modern consoles. I don't even know. How would you describe these?
So it's just like the arcade archives, the Neo Geo games, where they're basically straight porting these Nintendo's old arcade games for the Switch. For the first time ever, these games have not been available on any home consoles or handhelds, just ever. And in a lot of ways, they're just kind of they're different versions of games that we saw on home console. A lot of NES games, like the original Mario Brothers versus. Well, let's go through the list of what what they either announced or that they showed. Super Mario or Mario Brothers versus Super Mario Brothers versus Balloon Fight versus Ice Climber versus Pinball versus Clue Land and Punch Out. And so they all have little differences to them. Some in some graphical, some with sound, some in display. Punch Out is like totally different. I think a lot of the actual gameplay is the same, but with different, like little bit different moves and characters. And Little Mac is like a green wireframe, and the display is on like a 90-degree angle. So like,
Oh, but that's accurate to the
Mhm.
arcade version of Punch Out.
That's right. So that's what all these are, is like the arcade versions of all of these games, and it's not a virtual console. And it's not. It's just so weird because it's like I'm not sure whose nostalgia buttons they're hitting on this one. I think I probably played some of these games in arcade cabinets, but like that's not my personal experience with them. That said, I am excited to dig into all of these.
I think it's interesting that this is happening.
Yeah.
And there's another news item that we'll get to a little bit later, but it makes me wonder what the future of virtual console is between these like arcade archives being released and the like games that we know are coming to the Nintendo like online whatever we're calling that, like
Yeah,
subscription,
the online
where there's like
service,
that
yeah.
like service where there's like a library of NES games that have been maybe enhanced with multiplayer or like some sort of online functionality. And they have these classic edition consoles, and where is there room for virtual console at this point?
Yeah, I mean it is interesting where you're like, what's the business model here? Like, how many methods of classic game distribution do you need, and how many like competing brands of things do you need? Classic edition, arcade archives. I guess it's only two so far, but virtual console. That's
Yeah, whatever they
and the
call up.
subscription service.
Yeah, the subscription service. So yeah, it makes me the future of what we know as virtual console feels murky, at least to my eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. Another surprise, Bethesda's in the game. They're putting out, as we know, Skyrim on Switch.
Right, and that comes out November 17th, which is 3 days after LA Noir. So I had talked last week about maybe I was going to pick up LA Noir, but with it coming out so soon before Skyrim, Skyrim is more interesting to me. I know I will get more enjoyment out of Skyrim than I will LA Noir.
That's good. I think we can divide and conquer that. That I'll do LA Noir and you can do Skyrim. Perfect. But that's not all. Bethesda's also bringing Doom this holiday season and Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus sometime in 2018. Wolfenstein 2, it should be noted, is not out on other platforms yet. It comes out on October 27th, otherwise known as Super Mario Odyssey Day. But it's incredibly exciting to see Bethesda, a huge developer with lots of, exciting properties, putting so much weight behind the Switch and getting even like current generation games to run on this thing.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And there's also rumors of like a Fallout 4 Game of the Year edition or something out there,
man.
that may or may not be true, but it is really cool to see a big third-party publisher jump on the Switch. And yeah, they are bringing like enhanced ports of older games, but also to bring something like Wolfenstein 2.
Yeah. Mark, wild speculation, what do you think's going on here? Bethesda just is like, let's do it. Let's back this thing. Did they see an opportunity, or
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's a combination of things. It sounds like from the little bit that they've talked about the Skyrim port that like previously Nintendo never reached out to Bethesda or anything. And that seems like in the lead up to the Switch, that relationship grew a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, I think other Western third parties who are sitting out on, who are like not participating and not putting their games on Switch are going to be missing out because they're the Switch to me feels different from the Wii, where there is a lot of excitement around the console and there's a lot of excitement about product that isn't just Nintendo.
Right. Well, and I mean, I think more to the point too, that like people who play video games are excited about the Switch, and people who play video games weren't necessarily excited about the Wii. So those people are gonna pick up Skyrim for the third or fourth or fifth time, and then Doom and Wolfenstein and probably Fallout. Yeah, no, that's it's cool and exciting, and I think Bethesda is pretty well positioned for that kind of move too, just because their games always to me seem more like PC focused, so they're like built on that system of like sliders anyway, of like how high graphic fidelity can your PC handle. Great, we'll scale up to that, or great, we'll scale down to it. So if they just need to like set those sliders on the lower end of average to put it on Switch, great.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, and I think that pretty much wraps up the Direct. There were some other things in there that we didn't really hit. Was there anything that you wanted to talk about that you feel like we're missing?
Only quickly to mention that the Breath of the Wild Champion Ballad amiibos were dated for November 10th. No word on the release date of the Champion's Ballad DLC. I would have thought that they would have been day and date. The amiibo and the pack, but maybe not.
Yeah, I mean maybe they will be, and they just haven't talked about it yet.
Yeah, I mean that would be, I mean whatever.
I mean I think they're gonna do probably a whole reveal about the Champion's Ballad, and they probably just didn't have time in the Direct, but they want to get those pre-orders up. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I don't know. And tapping those things in will give you more helmets for the ancient armor that are based on the divine beasts. I like that ancient armor, so I'll wear all of those helmets.
So
I'll wear every single one.
So a couple of just like remaining news items that aren't Nintendo Direct related. A few weeks back, we talked, I think, about data miners finding an NES emulator in the Switch firmware with the codename Flog. Turns out that there's possibly more to that name. And then it might have had the particular meaning of golf.
You mean because flog is golf backwards?
Yeah, so allegedly hidden on each Switch is a copy of Golf, the NES game, that complete with like 2-player Joy-Con support. So there's some question about whether this is real or not. Only because the person who found it hasn't explained how they got to it or how they activated it.
Oh, interesting.
And nobody else has like replicated it. But Ars Technica reached out to Nintendo for comment, and while a PR rep didn't provide official comment, they did respond with "Ha!" HA exclamation mark for so whatever that means.
Like ha, you found it.
Yeah, or like ha, that's dumb.
Or, ha! The rest of my day is going to be more difficult than I thought it was going to be.
So yeah, maybe this is, if real, maybe this is just a test for those online service games that we were talking about that just got like left in the firmware.
Yeah, that's possible. That it's just like something that they booted on, like there's a little like test case for each Switch to be like, does it work? Does it connect to whatever it has to connect to?
Yeah, or like a lot of times things get left in code because it's difficult to take it out or time consuming, or there's no real benefit if you hide it deep enough.
Right.
And so maybe this was something that was never intended to be found, but it was like a test to see if they were able to do these things for the online service.
And also, if people discover it, then hey, good for you. You get to play NES Golf.
Yeah, exactly. Finally, if you were one of the many people who wanted an NES Classic Edition but weren't able to get one, Nintendo kind of surprised everybody last week by announcing that they're going to be bringing the NES Classic Edition back next summer, in the summer of 2018.
Was this really just last week? I feel like this was so long ago.
And they also reiterated that the SNES Classic, there will be more of those available day one than there were of the NES Classic total. So that means that there'll be more than like 2.3 million units out there on day one. And they're going to continue making the SNES Classic into 2018, whereas previously it was announced to just be a 2017 exclusive.
Which is such a weird thing to announce, by the way. That we're going to sell this thing for 3 months. That's it.
Well, I mean, I think before they were still planning on it being limited, and so they wanted, to give people a heads up. But it seems like they have reversed course and are just going to make these things seemingly freely available.
So my theory on the NES Classics and the SNES Classics is that they realize they have this insane market for these machines and for these games, and we will not see NES games or Super NES games on any kind of Switch Virtual Console until the fervor around these boxes has died out.
But we know that we're getting NES games on the Switch before the fervor around these dies out.
Do we? We know that there will. Well, okay. So you're saying the subscription thing? Yeah. I guess those we won't see those games though. You're not going to see Super Mario Brothers 3. You're not going to see A Link to the Past. You're not going to see Super Metroid on the Switch, as long as they can sell these Classic Edition consoles.
So here's my question: is for you is when the NES Classic Edition comes back next summer, is it going to be the exact same as the original run, or are they going to pack in a second controller, extend the cords to equal the length of the Super Nintendo Classic Edition one?
Are they going to put 5 more games in it?
Right. Will it be the same price? Now they know what the demand is, right? Like, do you think it'll be exactly the same? I'm imagining the cords will equal the length of the
Super Nintendo Classic.
Yeah, which is, I think, we're like 2 or 3 feet longer.
I'm guessing identical.
Really?
I'm going to say that they're going to be identical in price and in SKU to what they were originally. Or, like, if not that, then, like, make some real changes. Put in the second controller, longer cords, more games, maybe raise the price, maybe don't.
You had mentioned this before, but it would be interesting if they did, like, a different mix of games.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are some games on there that could go. I could go no problem. We don't need that port of Pac-Man on there.
No, and but I would love to have Castlevania 3 on there.
Would love to have Castlevania 3 on there. I don't need Castlevania 2 on there.
No, you can remove Castlevania 2.
All right, Mark, I think we've actually made it through the news. Let's get out of the news. And that's going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Remember, if you like the show, you can rate and subscribe and review us on iTunes. But, if you just like listening to us, we appreciate you. So, thank you.
And on Thursday, we'll be back to talk about Samus, I did that again. Metroid, Samus Returns.
You were going to say Samus Metroid Returns.
I was.
It's true, though. Both Samus and the Metroids are returning in this game. That'll be on Thursday. Remember, you can always follow us on Twitter. We're at NinCart Society. Check out the Facebook page, which is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. And if you have any feedback or want to ask us any questions, you can shoot us an email at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com. If you like Mark Mine's opinions, we do write about comic books on retconpunch.com. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can check out his music on 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying, thanks for listening.